I've known Leo indirectly for about 30 years because I've used the Citizen's Guide to Peaceful Civil Disobedience in my life for the last 20 years. And I just recently found out that it was written by Leo.
Thanks, Cal, for those very kind words, and thank you to you.
Say very emphatically, the law recognizes the importance that civil disobedience has played in the preservation of our democratic rights. It also recognizes your right to engage in civil disobedience. If there was any doubt of that, the point was made by the then Chief Justice of the Manitoba Court of Appeal, Samuel Friedman. And in a speech to the Empire Club, not the most civil disobedient-oriented organization in the country, he said this: "There have been instances in human history in which disobedience to law has proved a benefit to law and to society." What a remarkable statement from the Chief Justice of one of our Canadian provinces. He continued on to note that there were three qualities to civil disobedience that are important. One, it's always peaceful. Two, those who engage in civil disobedience must be prepared to accept the penalty arising from the breach of the law, and it's that willingness that attracts the moral approval and support and encouragement of other members of society who perhaps have not joined you in engaging in civil disobedience. And thirdly, their purpose must be to expose the law breach to be immoral or unconstitutional in the hope that it will be changed, or in the hopes that the administrative decision will be changed. And let me pause to make one comment that just to point out that contrary to the language of some critics of the Stanley Cup riots from last June, who've called it civil disobedience, that is most emphatically not civil disobedience. Of the cases in my material, but very quickly, it involved the small town of Janelle, British Columbia, a sweet little town of about probably now 1,000 people in the Kootenays, near China Creek, near Trail, British Columbia. And they discovered one day, much like you people have discovered about the open pit coal mines, that there was going to be uranium exploration in their watershed, in the Janelle area watershed in China Creek. And they did what they could to persuade the person who was doing the blasting and the drilling to move elsewhere. But whatever else there may be there, that was their sole source of water for their livelihood, and they were not about to tolerate being, those days it was only about 700, showed up and blockaded the road. These were average people, like yourselves, like all of us, who had never before engaged in an act of civil disobedience. And they did it. And they stayed there day after day after day. Finally, I'm not sure, I don't recall the moment whether it was injunctions or whatever, but the RCMP showed up and ordered them out. And by pre-arranged plan, all but 3 people did leave. And these were 3 people who had decided they were going to take this to the end, and if need be, go to jail. And one, and I can see their faces today, they were so remarkable, the people. One was a fireman, for the volunteer fireman, for the city of Trail. Another was a woods worker, and another was a miner. Now, the views of Chief Justice Friedman that I just mentioned to you were adopted by the judge that we drew in that case. We tried a number of defenses, none of them succeeded. It was no surprise to us. When it came to sentencing, the judge adopted the comments of Mr. Justice Friedman in terms of how he characterized the civil disobedience. And I want to just close by reading you his description of these three people, because it seems to me to fit, and to be very apt for the kind of circumstances that we're talking about here. He ended up being so taken with the sincerity of these people that, yes, he did indeed convict them, but he gave them an absolute discharge. They would have no criminal record, and they walked out essentially free men from the courtroom. That's not always going to be the case, but their demeanor, their approach, the moral position they took all contributed to that kind of outcome. It was absolutely remarkable. But he said this, and this applies to many of the people that I've met who were involved in this conduct here. He said, I was particularly impressed with the credibility and integrity of all three accused. All three are working family men and upstanding members of the community. All three were fully aware of their actions in blocking the roadway would amount to a criminal offense. This apparently resulted in no small battle with their consciences, as none of them had run afoul of the law before, and it was clearly not their wish to do so at this time. Their decision to take this risk has obviously caused them a great deal of personal anguish. However, no one could attack their motives. They were motivated primarily by the honestly held belief that the exploration activities could constitute serious danger to the health of their family and the community at large. And he goes on at some length. But that was the conclusion that he came to about these men and their conduct and their morality and their motives. And ended up, as I say, giving them an absolute discharge, despite the fact that over a prolonged period of time they had committed what the law considers to be a fairly serious criminal offense.